Okay, part 2 of transformations is talking about the reverse. So the previous part, we gave you a function, gave you a graph, and you had to describe the transformations. What's going to happen in this one is I'm going to give you a parent function, and I'm going to tell you the transformations, and you have to write the new one. So just as a refresher, these are all the rules. And now they're going to go kind of backwards. So now I'm going to tell you to do a vertical shift up, which means you need to know that this is what you do to the function, that you add to the whole thing, and then be able to apply that change to the original function. So you'll refer back to this. We're going the opposite way now. Now you're given this information, and you have to apply that to the parent function. Same with these non-rigid transformations. Remember that vertical stretch and shrink are multiplying, and that anytime it's horizontal, everything is backwards. So this guy is the reciprocal. Let's try one of these. So here's the basic steps, right? Remember, when it's vertical, it's outside, meaning you do it to everybody. If there's a whole bunch of stuff going on already and you do something vertical, apply that to everything. And then when you do horizontal, you're doing it inside, and I would suggest that you use parentheses. And then kind of in your mind, keep this in the back of your mind. Remember that horizontal is always backwards, right? Horizontal, backwards. You're going to be given multiple transformations, so you apply them one at a time and then in order. So as you read them through, you'll apply those, because sometimes it does make a difference. Okay, this first one. Here's our parent function, so that's what we start with. We're going to do a horizontal shrink by 1/4, followed by a translation or shift 3 units up. So I've got two things that I've got to do here. A horizontal shrink by 1/4 and a translation or shift 3 units up. So one at a time. This new function I'm writing, I'm going to call it g of x. That's pretty standard. G of x equals, so I'm going to start with my basic original one. Here's x squared. And then I'm going to make the changes that I need to. So horizontal shrink by 1/4. Let's go back to our cheat sheet here. Horizontal shrink means we have to multiply by a inside. Now remember that a, this right here, you're going to have a reciprocal. So if I say by 1/4, I need to write this over here. If I say horizontal shrink by 1/4, that means I need to multiply inside by the reciprocal of 1/4. That's that backwards stuff right there. Horizontal shrink by 1/4, remember it had to do with this reciprocal guy. So if it's a shrink by 1/4, then I'm actually multiplying by 4. So rewriting my function, I've got g of x equals x squared, but we've got to apply something to the inside. Now inside, with x squared, or with any of the power functions, you should use parentheses. So we're going to replace that x squared with parentheses squared and the x inside, and I'm going to throw that 4 and multiply inside by that. So the change I've made is I took this x and I replaced it with 4x. And I replaced it with something, so I put parentheses on there to show that it's 4 and x inside now, raised to the second power, and not just 4 times x squared. Here would be the difference. Right? The parentheses tell me that that 4 is multiplying inside on the x, and then after that, the whole thing is squared. This one down here says, okay, you're going to square the x and then multiply by 4, which is not a horizontal shrink. Multiplying inside means you're going to add parentheses on that one. All right, let's do this other one. Translation 3 units up. Okay, going back to our cheat sheet. We want to shift up which means we need to add to the whole thing. Basically, here's my original function, and I have to add a number onto the end of it. So here's where I'm at right now. G of x equals parentheses 4x squared. I'm going up 3, so I'm going to throw a plus 3 out here on the end. All right, so my new function, my g of x, is 4x squared plus 3. Now there is technically more simplification you could do right there, but since we're practicing transformations, I'm just going to leave it as 4x in parentheses squared. Okay, let's try these. Okay, parent function, or the square root function. Translation 2 units up. Okay, there's one of my transformations. Followed by a horizontal stretch by a factor of 3. Okay, 2 units up. Let's look back at our cheat sheet. We already talked about shift up means add to the whole thing. So this means I'm going to take my original function, g of x is my new one, so g of x equals square root of x, but this first one says that we're going to go outside the function and add 2. Okay, red one's done. All right, then we've got a horizontal stretch by a factor of 3. Okay, horizontal in your brain, bells and whistles. Oh, if you look at our cheat sheet for a horizontal stretch, we're multiplying by a inside, where if you remember, a is the reciprocal. So even though we're doing a stretch by 3, we're actually going to multiply inside, stop it, multiply inside by 3. Just kidding, by 1/3. Haha, I caught myself. By 1/3 because that's the reciprocal. Just kind of get your brain in this setting that says if it says horizontal, something's going to be backwards. Something's going to be different than what I would think it is. So now right inside here, instead of just x, it's going to say 1/3 x, and then everything else is going to stay as is. It's still going to have a square root over it. Still got this plus 2 out in front, and then it's called g of x. And you can leave it just like that. All right, this next one is absolute value. We've got a reflection over the x-axis, and then we've also got a translation or shift 3 units right. Okay, reflection, let's review what that was. Reflection over the x-axis is right there. So reflection over the x-axis means to put a negative in front of the whole function, which basically changes everybody's sign. Okay, sorry about that. I had to go pull a little switcheroo. I had the wrong rules in here. I changed the wording on these ones this year. So anyways, we were doing a reflection over the x-axis. Reflection over the x-axis says to multiply the whole function by -1. All we really do is we're changing everybody's signs because we're flipping from everybody's on one side to the other side, which is basically going from positive to negative or negative to positive, right? From top to bottom or bottom to top. So right here, this one says we're going to multiply outside by -1. So to do that, let's write our g of x right here. In this example, that's very, very easy, right? Multiply by -1 out in front. Done. And then a translation 3 units right. If you look back at the cheat sheets, 3 units to the right. So horizontal shift right means you subtract it from X and you do that inside. So this means to subtract inside. So now our inside is going to look like this. Okay, let me put in the rest of those pieces. This -1 out in front, you have to leave the 1, right? Superhero, if he's not needed, he goes away. He is invisible. Dun, 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 unless you need him. Okay, and that's it. That's those two reflections. Jeez. Blah, 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 blah. Those are the two transformations that we're asked to apply. Okay. This next one, that is the cubic function. And we've got to do a vertical shift up 3. We're going to go up 3, which by now you should have that memorized. You're going to add 3 outside. So just on the end of the function. And then we're also going to do a vertical shrink by a factor of 1/3. All right, let's start with that first one, nice and easy. Here's my new function, g of x, starts out with the parent, and then along comes this transformation that says, oh, I'm going to shift you up, so I'm going to add 3 outside. There you go, added 3 onto the end. Okay, moving on to the next one. This guy right here, vertical shrink by a factor of 1/3. Let's go back to the shrink page. Vertical shrink says you multiply by a outside. There's no reciprocals with vertical. Vertical is nice and straightforward, easy. If it says to multiply by this number, you multiply by that number. You don't have to flip anything around. All right, so if you, sorry, let me show you really quick on this as well. This is what it looks like. So you're supposed to take a and multiply the function by it. Well, where we're at right now is we've actually already applied one transformation. So when I'm going to go through and multiply g of x by that 1/3, I'm actually going to be multiplying, whoops, that's a 3. That's not a 3. That's a 3. I'm going to be multiplying everything by that. Right? That would be equivalent to me taking 1/3 times that whole thing. And what you do to one side, you have to do to the other, right? So my actual function would be g of x equals, now if you left it as 1/3 parentheses x cubed plus 3, I'd probably be okay because you're showing me you understand that whole concept of it has to be multiplied to everybody. Or you could distribute it. I mean, technically, distributing it would give me the proper form, if you must, but I would accept either. This one came from multiplying 1/3 times 3. Okay, this one right here is exponential. We've got a horizontal shift right and a reflection over the x-axis. So let's do horizontal shift right in blue, and then we will do reflection over the x-axis in orange.